Hello, my name's Katie, welcome to my YouTube channel, and if you're new here then I'm an artist and illustrator, and a month ago I started an almost daily art challenge. So every couple of weeks I do a roundup video where I just talk through some of the pieces I've created, and we're already on weeks 4 and 5, so I'm going to run through those today. I'm going to pop links to the first few videos which explains a little bit more about them down below and also up in the cards. Day 19 I did another one of these little plant pieces. I did a similar one a few weeks back because these are like my go-tos if I don't have much time. I really like the colours on this one. It's very, very basic, took about 10 minutes, and I used the Himi gouache set which you can see right here. That's the cheap gouache jelly paints that I got from Amazon, and yeah, it's really simple. I didn't have much time, so I'm glad I managed to create a new piece. I did find that, I think it was week 4 that I didn't have as much time, so a lot of them were quite quick, compared to week 3 where I had a little bit more time for like the Paris painting. Week 4 did feel a bit more rushed, and then week 5 I don't feel like I experimented enough or tried new things, but we'll get to those paintings in a minute. 20 is in my little sketchbook, and this one was on a page which I started, I think it was the previous week, where I did this one which I showed you, and this is the one that I did for day 20. So this is Hinton Ampner, which is a National Trust property in Hampshire. This one was done when I got home, so this one was done on location at the National Trust house, but this one was done when I got home. I just tried to mimic the top one so that it went nicely on the page together, used similar colours. It was all done in coloured pencil, and I think it was a touch of Neocolor pastels for like this tree and the sky, which I watered down because they are water soluble. I think this page is quite nice. I really like the way that they look together, and it's nice to have like a finished page in the spread. I have noticed that in my sketchbook I'm getting a lot of marker bleed through when I'm experimenting with markers, so I think I want to do some collages or maybe stick some paintings in on top just to hide that, because I don't think I can work on top of it. Day 21 is another loose piece, and this is on this really textured paper. And this was again just done with gouache and a little bit of pencil to add all the details. This was done after a busy agency day of work, so I didn't have that much time, but I really like how this came out. I really like the looseness of the trees. So it's nice and simple, nice and bright, and I think it definitely helps having a time limit because it stops me from overworking things and adding too much details when it's not necessarily needed. And because this one's quite a simple subject, I think it works really nicely, and it feels like it goes with the subject because I feel like it's quite childish, and obviously tree houses remind me of childhood and that sort of nostalgia, so I'm quite pleased with this one. I think for such a quick daily painting, it came out really well. So this next piece is in my large sketchbook, and this was part of the Squareathon Instagram challenge, so that's a prompt list which is hosted by Melissa, and I'll pop her Instagram handle down below. But basically you get 3 prompts and you can choose 2 or 3 of them to create a piece of artwork. So the prompts for this one was mustard yellow, bird and polka dot. So I'm really happy with this. I wasn't sure at first. I really thought I wouldn't be able to save it, but I think all the details definitely helped. I used really cheap gouache paints, and so when I did the first base layer, although I always find that there is an ugly stage, this was really ugly, and I wasn't happy with it at all. And one thing I find is that I don't always make the pieces in my sketchbook look cohesive. So like when I did the bird next to the peaches and the leaves, it didn't make sense. It didn't feel like it flowed together. So I added in quite a lot of leaves around the bird and at the bottom with Neocolor pastels, and added in a lot of details on top again with the pastels and the coloured pencils, and I think it works a lot better. I'm actually quite happy with the spread in the end. I was in danger of overworking it and adding in too much, but I am glad I went back in with the white details, which I used a Posca paint pen for, because I think that ties it in together. And overall, I think it came out really nicely, and it's really nice and bright. It was quite loose and experimental, so it feels like a good thing to be in my sketchbook. It was definitely a surprise for me at how it came out in the end, and I was really pleased with it. The last one for week 4 is day 24, and I created this small little landscape, again in gouache and with coloured pencil details. And I love this one. I feel like this is the kind of work I want to create. I love creating landscapes, which you'll have seen in my work, and I'm just really pleased with it. And this one, again, was quite quick. I didn't have a huge amount of time, but I really like how it came out. I like the sky and how you've got the looseness in the brush strokes there, and you can see that, and then all the detail again on top. I really like the colours of this one, and I think this is probably one of my favourites that I've created in the past 2 weeks, just because it feels very me and it's the kind of work I think I want to create. I mentioned in the last roundup video that I was adding hints of pink to my artwork, and that's another thing which you can see here that I did again, and I think it works really well. So on to week 5 and day 25, I created this leafy insect gouache painting. This is based off a painting that I did earlier in the challenge, which was with the Summer Creativity Challenge prompt, which was snails, so it links back to that painting in terms of the colours, and I really enjoyed that one and like how it came out, so I thought I would mimic the sort of styling with it, with the bright colours and the leaves for this one. This one was part of Shape Timber, which is an Instagram challenge again, and the prompt was Creepy Crawly. It was really nice to illustrate insects, which I wouldn't normally do. I really like the bright pops of the red and yellow, and then I added in the very stylised flowers in the back with the pink and orange, and I think altogether the colour palette is really nice. I'm really pleased with how vibrant and bright it is, and although it lacks a lot of the texture that the first one had, I think this is still really nice, and it does feel like children's illustration. I feel like it's quite kid-lit, and I liked the extra little details I added, and I think this one was really successful. So back in the small sketchbook for day 26, and this sits on the opposite page of the plein air landscape I did at the end of week 3. And this was another experiment with markers. So I tried markers, I think it was in week 3 again, where I hadn't used markers before, but I did use other mixed media with it. And this time I wanted to challenge myself a little bit and just use solely markers. So there's no other mediums in this page. It is just using pro markers and a mix of other markers I have in my stash. I taped it off first, so I taped off these little sections, and it didn't work entirely. It definitely bled through, but it helped give me a space to work with, and I liked using the reference but in different ways. So it was a landscape reference, but I pinpointed these different areas of it and created these little portrait scenes too. I used Map Crunch for the reference, which is a place I think I've used before on the challenge, but it's a website where you can transport yourself anywhere in the world. So it's like a random street view generator, and it will just plonk you anywhere in the world and you get the view that you get. And I'm really pleased with this one. It was good to experiment with markers again. I'm really pleased with, I can sort of see some improvement from when I first used markers. It definitely takes a lot of layering and getting used to how much it bleeds, and that can be because of the paper type, but it was definitely a lesson in just layering what I've got instead of keeping it nice and flat. And I think the result was really nice and textured. It's definitely stylised because of the colours, and I added in the little swatches again, which I really like to do, and I've done in a couple of paintings this week. But overall I really like this one, and I feel like it doesn't really sit nicely with this one because they are such different styles, but I'm really pleased with it and I like how it looks. Okay, so this next one was using a prompt which was sent to me by Emma when I first asked for prompts for this challenge, and that is galaxy and space. Now, I hated this one when I first did it, and I was really disappointed, but in hindsight, I think it's okay. It didn't come out like I wanted it to in my head, but I think it's kind of saved because I added in some collage. So these planets are done using collage, and I used my paint palette sheets and cut those up to get the nice textures. So I use paint palette sheets instead of a ceramic or plastic paint palette because it's nice and easy and I can re-wet it, which is perfect for gouache. And so often those palette sheets, by the time I'm done with them, are filled with different colour and it creates really nice textures. So I thought I wanted to use those as collage pieces on this one. I did originally paint the planets underneath, but I didn't like how they came out and the colours weren't working. So I decided to use them on this one. And I definitely think it helped. I do like the little stars and the details there, and I think I imagined it a bit brighter, and when I flicked on the white paint for the really small stars, they definitely have got lost. They're not as bright white as I imagined them, so that's why I went in with the larger ones, just to sort of show that swoosh of stars. Now I'm looking at it, I do like the texture and I do like some of the colours. I think it's hard for me to balance what I had in my head with what actually comes out, and so usually after a couple of days I have a better feeling about the paintings, because I think there's always a balance of what you've got in your head as an artist and what comes out on paper, and there's always a difference. So I always find it helps to look objectively a few days later, and I think it does help doing these roundups so I can see them all as a whole and see how I feel about them like a few days later. I also used some metallic paints for this one, which you wouldn't be able to see in the Instagram photo, I don't think, but there are definitely some metallic shimmers which help it in real life look a bit more spacey and galaxy themed. It's quite flat, this one. There's no there's a bit of extra pencil detail on the trees, but there's not much else elsewhere. Galaxy and space is a very new subject for me. I've not done that before, and definitely when I want to revisit, I think that this would be fun to try again with, especially because it didn't come out how I expected. So I definitely think something to retry and come back to later on in the challenge. So day 28 is in the small sketchbook and is this pink landscape. This was done with an acrylic paint base, and then I went over it with quite a lot of the Prismacolor pencil marks, so there's a lot of texture on this. I really like the colours. I think the colour palette is my favourite element about this. It feels very otherworldly because of the colours. I haven't paired like the yellow with the green and the blue and the pink before, and I think they work really well. I really like the texture that's created with the pencil marks. It's very simple. Again, didn't have that much time, but it doesn't really go with what else was on the sketchbook page, and again I've got marker bleed through on this spread. But the thing with sketchbooks I guess I need to let go of is that it needs to tie together. The whole point of the challenge was to experiment and try new things, so it doesn't matter if it doesn't sit with things that go with it. There is a lot of texture there and it feels very loose, which is definitely something I'm striving for. Day 29 is in a whole new sketchbook again, and that's in this spiral one, which is A3 size. And it's on this really nice textured canvas paper. And this is again part of the Squareathon prompt challenge, and the prompts for this one were tropical, blush pink and vase, and I went with blush pink and vase to create this piece. This was done entirely in gouache and then some details added with Prismacolor pencils. And I really like the warmth of this one. I really like the colours. There are some elements I don't love, and there are definitely some parts I can add to. It's quite simple in its application, but I think it's the largest piece I've done, which is just gouache. Usually when I work this size I use acrylic paint because it helps me be a bit looser, and I'm quite precious with gouache because I think because of the price of it, it's quite expensive, and so I work quite small with it. But I really like the way it worked here, and it sat really nicely on this textured paper. It feels quite one-dimensional, it feels quite flat, but I think it works as a style, and I like the extra detail in the back just to add a bit of the pattern in the wall. And yeah, it just gives me a nice warm feeling. It was very simple for me to do. It didn't feel like it was very taxing. I enjoy painting florals and I think the result is nice. Finally, to round up week 5 was day 30, and there are 2 paintings which I shared for day 30. The first is this one, which is part of a giveaway. So if you follow me on Instagram and you're watching this as this video goes live, you can enter to win this one. It's open to all my followers worldwide, and you just need to pop a comment on my post, and that's just to celebrate me hitting 3,000 followers on Instagram, which I hit last weekend, which is amazing, and I'm really grateful, so I just wanted to give something back. So I created this on day 29 actually, but I photographed it with day 30 to tie in with the 3 number, and because I want to keep all 313 paintings at the end, or see them all together before I then sell them off as originals, and obviously I'm giving this one away, I wanted to create a painting that I can keep myself, so I just did these quick little gouache studies. Very, very simple. They use the same reference, which I'll link all the references down below. But they're very simple and, they're not my best work. They're very quick. But there's something in them that I like. I think, it's the colours. I really like the pairing of purple and green, which I don't think I've done much before. So definitely something I want to explore in future landscapes. But for quick little studies, they're okay. And this one was the main piece for that one, and I really like the colours of this one. I like how it came out, and the textures and the colours just really stand out to me. So I'm glad I managed to paint something nice for the giveaway. It's always a bit of a worry when I'm creating something for someone else, but I'm pleased with that one, and then these are the ones that I'm keeping for myself for day 30. So that's the end of week 4 and 5 of the challenge. Overall, I think I created some nice pieces, nothing groundbreaking. I definitely feel like I didn't push myself massively in terms of subject. There were only a couple of days where I tried something new, and it felt like I didn't have that much time, so a couple of the paintings were very safe. Obviously there were a couple of days where it didn't come out as planned, but there's definitely things I can learn from those days. I felt like I had a little bit of a mental block, certainly in week 6. So at the beginning of the week, I definitely wouldn't have done any paintings if I didn't have this daily painting challenge. So it was good in that aspect to push me to actually be creative that day. But by the end of week 6, I felt a little bit more forced. It didn't feel like it was coming completely naturally to me. So I'm glad I have Saturdays off just to try and, not think about painting at all, completely recalibrate, and then I'll come back into it totally refreshed. I think for the following weeks I want to experiment more with portraits or figure drawing, because that's something I used to enjoy and I want to do more of, and I've only done that once so far. And I think it will be interesting to see how my style comes through when I am drawing more and more people. Obviously I enjoy doing the landscapes, and I definitely found that this is the sort of style I like. And I'm sure there will be more landscapes in the following weeks just because they feel quite safe to me and quite easy. But I definitely want to push myself a little bit more than I have done in the past too. I can't see any distinct style or anything coming through, but I'm really pleased to have kept up with it, and I feel like the standard is still okay. I'm still quite pleased with the paintings I'm creating. And yeah, we have a long way to go. I'm really determined to finish all 313 paintings for this challenge, and I feel like it definitely helps keep me accountable to be creative every day. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the next couple of weeks pan out. If you're interested in seeing my day-to-day paintings and seeing them as they come out and are created, then do follow me on Instagram, where I post every Sunday to Friday. And let me know your favourite down below in the comments. If you have any more prompts or ideas for me, then I'd love to hear them. I'll be back midweek with another quick speed paint, and then next week I'll be sharing a new project which I'm working on towards the end of September, and I can't wait to share it with you all. Thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely week. See you later.